just take a page out of David's script here. So welcome to the July 12th meeting of the Tenant Landlord Commission. This is Ryan Whitaker serving as interim chair for the next few minutes until David Tim arrives. So the first item on our agenda is the public comment period. Rolda, do we have anyone? There's no one in the room from the public here. Do we have anyone online to make a public comment?
No, there's no one registered to do so today. No.
Okay, so we can move off of that to the next agenda item. Thank you, Kirit. June meeting notes approval. Those were distributed a while back, I believe, and for commissioner review and comment. If anyone has comments on the meeting notes from last time, you can speak up now, commissioners. All right, no comments from anybody in the room. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Kirit makes a motion, a second. Emily seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, so that motion carries unanimously. We will move into the next few items on the agenda. The first is, oh, sorry.
Excuse me, David, Ryan, before you move on, we do have a minor change to the agenda. And Vanessa, the director, has a few words to say.
Okay, hi Ann, welcome. I suspect David will actually want to hear your comments because I know you and he have been trading emails.
Yeah, I was realizing that as well. So Rolda, why don't we move through the agenda so that we have an opportunity for David to join?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So the first item on the agenda will be the Department of Human Services representative, Vanessa Street. She would speak to us about the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Okay,
yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa Street. I'm with the Arlington County Housing Choice Voucher Program. Here joining me this evening is Tenant Stevenson. He works with us as a special programs coordinator. We're going to give you some updated information about the opening of our Housing Choice Voucher waiting list in upcoming months. And we'll be relatively quick. Tenant is going to take charge. We're given the basic body of the presentation, and I will join him at the end for questions and answers if we have time to do that. But I'll turn this over to Tenant Stevenson for the actual presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Vanessa. This is just a quick informational presentation. Oops. There we go. This is a little bit of background on the Arlington Housing Choice Voucher Program to refresh everyone. We are the core program, basically the core office part of DHS overall, and specifically the Housing Assistance Bureau that administers our federally funded housing subsidy programs like Section 8. Section 8's the big one, our core program, and that's the wait list that we're currently working on opening is for basically Arlington's Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program. This is a bit of background on the wait list. So because this is a federally funded program, it's funded by HUD. There's specific federal requirements that come into play. One of these requirements is that we maintain a wait list. So basically, a wait list for the actual subsidy, the vouchers. There's far more demand and eligibility than there is actual supply of vouchers. So we maintain this wait list, and every decade or so we open the wait list to new applicants, and then we refill it. And then as new vouchers become available, we move people up and off the wait list and get them their voucher, their subsidy, so that they can go and find housing in the county. So it's the last time we opened the wait list was in 2012. Since then, we've nearly depleted our wait list over the past decade. So, thus it's time to open the wait list again, and we're conducting a large marketing campaign. We're going to be conducting a large marketing campaign and coordinating across the county with various stakeholders to ensure there's a lot of understanding in the public that this is happening, to make sure that everyone has a chance to apply to get on the wait list. We fill the wait list through a lottery system. So basically, folks apply, submit their application. We conduct a lottery, and then we take several thousand. We haven't determined, I think, an exact number. I think we're aiming for 5,000 right now. We take a certain number of those out of the certain number of those applicants and stick them on the wait list, and then we work off that wait list for around a decade. Income eligibility, this is calculated by HUD every year. 75% of program participants must be extremely low income. The other 25% must be very low income. And what that means, it's a calculation based on AMI. Extremely low, you can see on the chart there, we're talking folks making between 30,000 and 50,000 roughly, depending on family size. Dollars a year. That's kind of who's eligible for the program, and less, obviously. So major HUD requirements. So because this is a federally funded and regulated program, the county has a lot less to do with actually regulating the program. The HUD's requirements are really the primary thing we're concerned with. So primary requirements from HUD include that we must proactively notify the public of the opening through things like this presentation, press releases, which we're planning to do, a large flyer campaign, that kind of thing. We must conduct affirmative outreach and marketing to ensure an equitable process, to make sure basically the entire county, the entire community is aware that this is happening so that everyone's got a chance to apply. We need to structure the waitlist opening in a manner to ensure language and disability and age and family accessibility. So through things like ensuring that there's availability for, special accommodations, right? Reasonable accommodations, that sort of thing. Preferences. So when folks apply, it's a national application because it's a federally funded program, so people can apply from all across the country. But we have a little bit of control over who's prioritized through preferences. You can think of this as basically a multiplier effect for the number of balls that go into the bingo cage, if you will. So if you live or work in Arlington, that's a preference. If you're homeless, if you're a victim of domestic violence, if you're a disabled household that qualifies either for permanent supportive housing or that would qualify under the Olmstead Act, those are also preferences. So we've got a lot of, if to try to basically target this assistance as best we can at locals and folks who most need it. So this is a summary of the current status of the project. We've done a lot of work already. We've created an internal project plan. We've organized an advisory committee that's what we've been actively working with. We've created a marketing plan. And we've also drafted a flyer, application tutorial, FAQ, various things that are going to go into ensuring that everyone can apply, who wants to apply. The primary means of application is going to be online. Another major change, the last time we opened the wait list, this is a big change for us. In 2012, it was a first come, first serve, so people actually had to physically come to, I believe DHS was the location, and wait in line and apply. And it was like the first, however many people who applied got on the wait list. This time around, we've switched to a lottery system, which is a much more equitable process. It doesn't require nearly as much in-person effort. So basically, folks are going to have, maybe a week or so. We're aiming for something around a week in early fall. It isn't fully solidified. In which anyone who wants to can apply. And then, like I said, it's going to go into a lottery system, and we're going to, pull applications from that. So that's a change from the last time. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Other things that we've been doing, we're organizing with experience advisory committee of basically folks who've received assistance or gone through the application process previously to advise us on our materials and make sure that the system, the online application portal makes sense to them. We're gonna have a website, press release that's gonna go out to the county. And like I said, we're hoping for early fall. This is a question for landlords because this is the first engagement we've had with landlords on this. What would be the best method for the dissemination of the information to your tenants that might be eligible and interested? If we provided flyers, understanding that mailings, large mass mailings are expensive, but trying to just get the word out, and landlords, obviously, y'all are most in communication with the tenants in the county. So this is something to help inform our process. That's pretty much it. Like I said, quick informational presentation, and we can move on to questions and comments.
Thank you, Tyler. I'd like to note that Chairman David Tim arrived during the middle of your presentation, so I can officially turn the reins back over to him. That was an exciting 15 minutes of fame for me.
Thank you for running in my stead.
Great job.
I do actually have a question for you there, Tyler. I run a project-based Section 8 property out of state, not in Virginia. So I'm wondering, who's responsible for doing the recertifications of tenants to qualify under their Section 8 vouchers? Is that the county or who does that?
I'll go ahead and answer that question.
Okay.
You say it's outside of Arlington County?
Well, yeah, my project is outside. So ours is project-based, but these are vouchers that can go with the tenants, right, to wherever they choose to live. So I assume there's an annual recertification process for your program as well. Who does that? The county or somebody else?
It would be the county. In that particular case, it would mean that they would use their existing voucher and port into Arlington County. They don't have to go through another waiting list. If they're already involved in HUD's tenant-based housing choice voucher program, there's a portability element.
I'm sorry, that wasn't my question. My question is who does the income recertification? Because you have to get recertified every year for your vouchers, right? To make sure you're not making too much. So does the county do that? Who does that?
Yes. If they poured it into Arlington, we would do that.
Okay, but even annually, when they're part of the program in Arlington, the county does it every year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And my second question is my understanding is any project that receives federally funded housing dollars is potentially subject to complying with UFAS, the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards. Are you familiar with that? Does that apply to tenant-based vouchers, or do you have any idea?
Yes, I do have an idea. Yes, they're responsible for the inspection standards. HUD has actually just released some new federal regulations about the inspection standards. We're waiting for HUD's release of the implementation details anytime now. So new regulations came out in February of this year about the actual housing standards.
Okay, thank you.
And so it's changing, actually.
Anyone else have a question? Right here.
All right, so often during the yearly budget hearings, speakers say that if Arlington County could improve affordable housing by better funding housing choice vouchers rather than some of the other things that they fund AHIP vouchers. So my question is, if Arlington County were to increase funding, would the housing choice vouchers be able to assist more people?
We have to remember that the Housing Choice Voucher Program is a federal program. We do have the Housing Grants Program, in Arlington. And if Arlington actually, let's say they've been talking for a couple years now about perhaps modifying some of the requirements for housing grants, then they could actually award that program, perhaps some additional funding that would extend their ability to actually assist more individuals, but that would have to go through the county board and everything in order to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Tyler,
what's the current plan to market this to, you said landlords or current residents of Arlington County?
Yeah, so the current marketing plan has us working with stakeholders across the county. Big focuses include making sure that there are flyers up in libraries, community centers, affordable housing properties, hopefully through like AHC, for example, as well as working very closely with the COC, the Continuum of Care, and that manages our homeless infrastructure. So ensuring that there's proactive notification in the shelter system, for example, as well as arming direct service providers, folks who work on the street, with information to help the on-street homeless apply. So it's going to be a large, a large flyer kind of distribution project. We're also talking about potentially getting flyers into things like laundromats, for example, throughout the county. So that's kind of, that's what we're looking at on that end. We're also going to have a presence on the web, and there's going to be a large press release. Potentially, we'll have 2 press releases, and that goes out to around 1,500 regional media publications to the county and the region overall. So, all your big newspapers, for example. So that's what we're talking about currently.
Actually,
Yeah.
I know I work very closely with the National Landing bid
Mhm.
here in Arlington, and I know they have access to like myself and like other landlords in Arlington County. So maybe it'd be good for y'all to like work through the bid system here in the county, like send those notifications out via email to landlords, so they can like disperse those to their residents that they have on file.
Yeah, that's so what was that? Is the bid system?
Yeah, so the like business improvement district.
Oh, the business. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point, actually. At the
Yeah.
business improvement districts. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
they have like distribution lists for all of their like big landlords in the
That
county
makes sense.
or in their district. So that's what we use a lot to like
Okay.
communicate stuff like this. So
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Tyler, is it fair to say that if landlords distributed this information, you would be supportive of that?
Oh, yeah. Yes, please.
Okay, I was setting myself for a future conversation, but yeah, that's perfect.
And Aaron, the national landing bid, is it just an email list that of the landlords that the bid has?
yeah, so they have like a distribution list. They send stuff out like this. I mean, not necessarily just like this, but things like this. It's like myself, other landlords like Equity, Avalon Bay, and then we'll send those out to all of our residents through like an e-blast. But this would be perfect for something like that.
Yeah. Okay, and I had a question. I think you might have alluded to it when you answered Aaron's initial question about distribution of flyers, but to me, it sounded like the only way to apply was online. Is that correct, or?
No, we're also going to have paper application documents for folks who can't apply online if it's like a reasonable accommodation, but we're expecting the vast majority of people to be able to apply online. We're also looking at having like in-person technical assistance available a couple of days throughout the week if someone doesn't have internet access at home, as well as trying to make available information on like where can you go, right, to access a computer.
We will also partner with the libraries.
Yeah.
We're developing partnership with the libraries so that several of the locations will be trained on the details of how to use the online portals and would be readily available throughout the county instead of just one prime location. And but basically, online application is going to be used unless there's a special need.
Yeah.
And then we will definitely provide reasonable accommodations.
Okay, great. That was, I was sure that you guys had it covered, but I wanted to double check. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Oh, yeah.
With the application, is there a lot of like evidence that they have to put in with their application to prove income or anything else? And is that advertised beforehand so you can make sure you know how to get those items if you need to?
Yes, it is. We will have a lot of information on our website, where detailed step-by-step process of going through the process. And we will also have a video, you know, it would be either be given, well, will be available both in written format and video to instruct the individuals how to get through the process, and helplines. They would be able to call, of course, certain hours, okay, in order to get technical assistance from designated staff.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for attending and giving that presentation. I found it valuable, and I look forward to hearing how the efforts turn out.
Okay, so
Thank you.
be assured that as soon as we finalize the plans, then we'll get, make sure that the commission is notified of the detailed plans.
And I'm sure it happened when I was here. When should we expect it? Thank you. In the fall.
We had not finalized an exact date, you know,
Yeah.
so we're working with advisory committees in order to do that. But as soon as it's finalized, you know, we're able to tell you it's going to be early fall is what we anticipate.
Okay. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, the next agenda item is the Clarendon Courts complaint.
Actually, they wanted Ann to.
Oh, yeah, that, thank you. And if you're available, I think we're ready for you.
Hi, everyone. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, excellent. So first, thank you for having me pop into your meeting tonight. I realize I'm not on the agenda, so I really appreciate you accommodating me. I wanted to come and speak with all of you because of the email that we received in June. And I wanted to let you know we really do appreciate David, you reaching out to share the Tenant Landlord Commission's concerns, and just to reemphasize to all of the commissioners that staff really values our collaboration with commissions, TLC, and all of our commissions. And it's always helpful to know commission perspectives and experiences. And so while the lines between staff and commissions must remain clear and distinct, we do value opportunities to share ideas. And we'll continue to be intentional about soliciting commission input when it's feasible and also when it's appropriate. And so just an example of that we very effective is with TLC's Alternative Dispute Resolution Subcommittee. My understanding is we're coordinating very closely with this subcommittee on research and recommendations. And, you know, given their specific purpose related to implementation of the county's CAF strategies, it's just been really helpful in supporting the county's policy goals. So I think that that really can be a model that we can look to follow going forward. And so, David, I know you and I had an opportunity to talk, and one of the other things that we spoke about is staff's role in supporting subcommittee meetings. And given that, unless we know ahead of time, you know, if certain staff need to be at meetings, that staff's role largely is a logistical one, opening the room, managing technology, those types of things. And so because of that, we really do encourage subcommittees to continue to share substantive updates in the larger commission meetings like these, which I know you do already. And so I think just continuing to do that so that we can continue to make content connections when possible. And I think also it's very beneficial when subcommittees develop and share agendas ahead of time, and also identify needed staff resources in advance of meetings. And so this is helpful both for staff to support the subcommittee's work. So again, if there's a certain staff resource that would be really helpful to have at a meeting, we can try to make that happen as schedules permit. But it also helps ensure that your all's time is used as effectively as well, because we recognize and appreciate that all of you are volunteers. So the last thing, just again, to echo the conversation, David, that you and I had, is that staff is continuously working to improve the county's approach to working with commissions. And so, for example, right now we're looking at ways that we can streamline the process for seeking help with legal questions. And we're looking to share that when we have more information. So that's something that we're working with the manager's office and our department director on. So I'll pause there. I know that that was a lot of information, and David, give you an opportunity too, if there's anything that you and I spoke to that maybe I didn't address just now.
No, I think you did a good job covering our conversation, and of course, we're always appreciative of your efforts and all of the county staff efforts. Of course, we would be totally ineffective without the things that you all do, and by the same token, I think that the frustration expressed was valid, and we need your help to do certain things, and I think that there was a breakdown on this particular occasion, and I don't expect it to be the thing that happens in the future, and it's not something I've seen significantly in the past. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to make a good new path forward here from this point on.
Okay. Great.
And this is Ryan Whitaker. I work with Kirit and Matt on the outreach subcommittee, and so I've got a question. So a couple months ago, Jennifer Daniels and a colleague whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, I apologize, presented some materials that we saw at that subcommittee meeting for the first time. Additional materials that you all were creating or your office was creating to provide additional information on various county programs and services. Not all housing division, obviously some stuff was Department of Human Services and other places. So I assume you all are still working through that process, and do you plan to, I assume you plan to communicate that with the TLC at some point when appropriate. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, so the effort that Ryan, Commissioner Whitaker is referring to is part of our CAF strategies. And so that is an effort that we've been working on over the last year. And so basically, as you indicated, it's not only the housing division in CPHD, but it's really a cross-departmental effort. So we have resources from police and DHS and fire and all sorts of folks around the county were able to contribute to this. And so staff wanted to provide a preview of the materials, the packet, before it was finalized to the outreach subcommittee. And so that packet, the materials are actually in process now, meaning they're going to print now and being assembled now so that they can be distributed to the CAF residents who reside, or the residents who reside in our CAF units around the county. So we're looking to do a distribution. It'll be to over 11,000 units when it's ready to go. And we've been working with Bugata actually to help. They'll be helping with that distribution. So we're really excited about it. It's, I think, long overdue, given the amount of information that's available to our residents. And we received feedback over the last couple of years that many residents weren't sure how to access these resources. And so it really is meant to be a way to kind of consolidate all of that information, representing, again, many departments within the county. So sort of a one-stop shop, like almost like what you would get like a welcome packet when you move into a unit, that kind of thing in one single source.
And I don't think that I don't think the TLC has received the final materials. It sounds like they are final. Would we be able to get a copy of all the different, I know there are different iterations, right? Different departments.
So the final copy, absolutely, we're happy to provide that to all of you, and I can work with staff to determine the easiest way to do that, if it's electronically or if there's like a printed copy that we can bring.
Yeah, so the reason I bring it up is we had the outreach subcommittee, was it 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Sorry, time is not a thing anymore, but and we were talking in the subcommittee that we would essentially, again, alluding back to my email, in an effort to not duplicate work, see what we can take from, what the county has so professionally put together, I presume, in terms of resources and piggyback off of those, and then move forward potentially with a recommendation to the county board about distributing those to more than just CAF unit tenants throughout Arlington. So that's sort of our plan right now, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it more in detail at the end of the meeting in the subcommittee reports section. But I think it'd be very helpful to get that, quickly so that we have a chance to turn it around sooner than later.
I'm sorry, an electronic copy of the final packet, the final materials.
That's right. Yep.
I'll work with staff just to confirm that we have those PDFs ready to go, or whatever version that they're in that we sent to print, so that we can provide that. And we'll work with Rolda to share that with all of you.
Great. Great. Okay. I don't think I've got anything else on the topic. Any other commissioners? Thank you so much, Anne. As always, appreciate your time.
Well, thank you again for letting me crash your meeting. Again, I realized this was technically an unscheduled item, so I really appreciate you letting me do that.
We're flexible here, Well, we made a very reasonable accommodation. We'll put it that way.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Anne. Okay. Moving to the second official item on our agenda here is the Clarendon Courts complaint report. Rolda, I believe you have some additional information to give us about that.
So apart from what was sent, and I hope you can see the screen, apart from what was sent, not really, there isn't additional information. So this is an update. It combines the Housing Division's inspection report with.
Hey, Rolda, I think you're sharing the file explorer rather than the actual document right now.
So well, I'm seeing the document on my end. Okay, sorry, let me try to get out and try to do this again.
Yeah.
Bear with me. This is Hector's, his expertise here is missing. So let me do what I can. Yeah, I'm sorry. By the way, I have an injury to my foot. This is why I'm not in the joining role today. Sorry. I have the document right here. Sorry, let me see if it comes up. Let me know if it's showing, please. No?
Not yet.
I can also pass this around to
We have one hard copy in the room, so I guess we could use that roll if we can't figure out the online.
Well, I also have, I think I also sent it around to a couple other people with just as an email because they weren't able to get it.
Yeah, we have it.
Rolda, is that in the shared directory?
It's in the shared directory. I already pulled it up. I have it at the bottom of the screen. It just needs to.
Here.
Okay, if you can help out, please. It's frustrating.
And you can just go ahead and talk, say whatever you were going to say.
Okay, so I can see it from my end, so I apologize. I'll just read from it.
Okay.
So the report talks about the trash, regular trash service actually on four days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and recycling on Tuesday and Friday. So that there is no code enforcement violation regarding trash, because as a matter of fact, the code enforcement indicates that this property is served above average with trash pickup and collection. In terms of pest control, the bushes have been removed as we had seen last year, and the pest control contractor monitors this area closely. Accessible parking, they've indicated that the accessible parking spots are free of barriers and pests. And property management, in addition to county code enforcement and housing compliance staff, they did not find any issues with these areas when they inspected. Bear in mind, inspections are done, Monday through Friday. A lot of the photos that we've seen of this property have occurred on the weekend, so there is that issue.
Right.
And in terms of laundry rooms, all of the laundry rooms have locks. There was one room that had a broken lock. It is a code entry lock and it needs a specific type of repair, so it couldn't be immediately fixed, but the property management company is scheduling a repair as soon as possible. Management has not observed any homeless people sleeping in the area, and they have not seen any belongings or signs of someone sleeping in the laundry room. So finally, the staff indicated that the housing compliance staff will continue to monitor Clarendon courts and will provide updates as needed. So if there are any questions, we can send them to Marie Randall, Housing Finance Supervisor.
Okay, and we've communicated this to the tenants that made the complaints, correct? They were CC'd on this email, right?
So were they CC'd on this email? No, they are not CC'd on this email. They have been informed. They will, the last conversations or exchange that took place between Ms. Durham and Code Enforcement Inspector. She pointed out that this happens on the weekends when inspections are not done. So
Yeah, I recall that.
it's really so we
well,
can forward
Yeah,
this.
I think let's just forward the summary to them, and I'm glad to hear they're gonna fix the broken locks. I think that was the thing, the biggest aspect that was still outstanding when we spoke last. Obviously, if there are issues on the weekend about trash being dumped and code enforcement can't catch it for whatever reason, then I'm not sure exactly what to do to proceed from there, but I'm open to hearing thoughts from other commissioners before we push past.
I mean, as a landlord, I can tell you right now that we're having at our properties here in Arlington and in Alexandria this spring, something's happened with the rodent population. And I mean, we've upped our pest control treatment. We've done all kinds of
I've
things.
been hearing about it.
So it seems to be something that is Mother Nature fighting back a little bit. But it sounds like this is a lot of progress made by the landlord, and I think we would need to pass this along to the tenants and make sure that they see the results of this. I don't think anybody expects perfection, but this seems like a big improvement.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. I mean, over here in Arlington, Crystal City, and Tenant City, like there's a ton of construction as there is here in this area, Clarendon, Ross and Boston, and that just seems to like exacerbate the problem of like rodents because they just have to go somewhere and go like every nearby building. So that's kind of what we're seeing, the same thing, very close by. So
I live over there, so I haven't seen any yet in my home, but
well, just about. I mean, so for example, we had the same problem with one of ours
Outside,
about they're looking for food, right? So they're going to trash enclosures and things like that, and that's where we don't have any in our buildings, thank goodness. But they are. Well, sorry.
unfortunately,
Yeah. But I mean, but there seems
it's
to
a
be
hazard of the.
Yeah.
construction. They have to like go from one place to the next. But I mean, I when I read that some of the things on here, it's similar to the problems that we have in some of our properties. I mean, it's just one, supplies are hard to come by right now, and that kind of is an issue. I kind of read in their report, and then the rodents, like they've got to go somewhere.
But on the other issue, the only thing you can do about security on the week, things happening on the weekends is to have some kind of security or maintenance patrol, and obviously that cannot be required.
Right.
of the
Well,
property.
and if there's my opinion is if there's an issue that's lasting 24 hours or less, which depending on when it happens over the weekend, I mean, that's a reasonable standard. I mean, things can't be perfect all the time. And, that's my opinion.
I think this is a pretty clear example where I'm, proud that we were able to like take any complaints and then go through the proper channels and get it sorted. And I see you got your hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi, actually, David, I think you were going to say, I don't want to steal your thunder, what I was going to say as well. I think just, Rolda, thank you for that summary. And the only thing I wanted to add is that we did have 2 of our compliance staff also visit the property. So in addition to code enforcement, so we were trying to hit the property at different times just to try to see if we could replicate some of the issues that the resident shared with the commissions at the joint meeting in May. And so I will say we're encouraged by property management's response. And I think similar to some of the comments that commissioners have shared tonight, they really are trying to be as responsive as they can be to some of these concerns that were raised. So for instance, with the trash pickup, they've shifted the schedule so that the trash is coming or trash pickup is coming Friday, Saturday, and also Monday. So really trying to hit that weekend time as much as possible, since that's when the concern was raised. So with the exception of Sunday, they really are, Friday, Saturday, and then Monday, trying to address any additional volume that may occur over the weekend. But the rest, David, I think you were about to say, so I don't want to steal your thunder, just about the ability to share back, I guess, what staff is learning or what property management may wish to share when we hear concerns.
Yeah, no, I think it can be demoralizing to hear lots of complaints and then not be sure whether things get resolved. And it sounds like, again, like everyone has said, nothing's going to be perfect. We all live in buildings that are older than perfectly brand new and in places where rats are outside and trying to get inside. But it's good when we can make significant progress for a tenant complaint. And, I'd love to be solving more of these on a regular basis. And I think that will go to what we talk about later with outreach, trying to get more people to come in and bring these complaints so that we can figure them out.
One thing I'd like to add, if I could, is in my own research related to our properties here, I did a little research to see if Arlington, like many other jurisdictions, has some kind of municipal road control program for sewers and fields and parks and things like that. And Arlington County does not. DC does, for example, but this might be something to put on our long-term list, because as Arlington densifies and becomes more, dense suburban, if you will, not quite urban like DC, but certainly corridors of density, that this might be something that Arlington might be forced into considering at some point.
Yeah. I really like that suggestion. We hear a lot about rodents.
Yes.
So, okay. Thanks, Anne. Anything else on that, Rhoda?
No, nothing more. It was just that was just the update that was provided by staff.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is the equity framework. I'm not sure how long we need to spend on this. I think we talked about this at the last TLC meeting. Yeah, if we've got it somewhere, that would be great to pull up. Yeah.
Hector, do you have it or not?
Yeah.
I'm working on it. Hold on a second.
He's opening it up. So I think everyone got a chance to see it after the last meeting. I think it was distributed. I just want to have a conversation about it. Again, this is something that was passed on to me by Callan Beth from the Housing Commission, and I think that the goals are in line with what Arlington is interested in doing, and making sure that when we're having conversations like these, we're considering the marginalized groups in every conversation. And I think this is just reaffirming a commitment that is already pre-existing in TLC. And I personally can't think of any reason we wouldn't adopt it, but I'm always open to hearing from other commissioners. So, great, there it is. Yeah, so any thoughts, questions, comments?
I thought it was pretty comprehensive. I didn't really have anything to say other than it was pretty comprehensive.
And my understanding was Housing Commission has already adopted it. I think they did so unanimously. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would contribute to the discussion. Any thoughts?
So if I may, I did have one question.
Yeah.
Given the work that the Tenant Landlord Commission does, and I say that, and I'm thinking about specifically the relocation plans, is that what we are thinking that this would apply most to? Now, forgive me, I know, it applies to everything. The county has adopted an equity framework, and so basically, yeah, all staff and all staff departments and everyone operates under that equity framework. Well, it's not being called an equity framework, it's an equity resolution. So specifically for the Tenant Landlord Commission, what does this mean, or what does it apply to? Where would we apply this equity framework in terms of our function?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Well, I think there are a lot of situations where we could do a better job just vocalizing some of these things. For instance, when you gave a good suggestion already, going through the relocation process, maybe we consider taking a closer look at the relocation guidelines and ensure that I think it probably is already compliant with the equity framework, but to the extent that there are, landlord specific or not landlord specific, but property specific issues that relate to these issues, we should be having them more at the front of our mind than the back. And then I think anytime we have someone come in with a complaint, I think it's probably a good idea for us to just sort of, at least mentally think about who these decisions might affect and impact, and whether it might be outsized based on one of these protected populations.
I don't disagree with that, but I would also counter though, I think we can keep that in mind when we hear some of these things that we're involved in various subjects, like you said, the relocation process or relocation plans, things like that. But I think we can keep this in the back of our minds as a guiding thing for the commission, but I don't think we can say, we can't say, well, do you feel like you're being discriminated against? Because then that's a leading thing. And, if you put it that way, people might say, oh, maybe, yeah.
I totally hear you on that. Yeah, I don't think it should be like a leading question type thing. It's more, like when we had the complaints recently from Clarendon courts, and we were talking about the accessibility issues with parking. I mean, they brought up those issues inherent in the complaint, right? And I think it was good and helpful for us to think about it from their perspective. But maybe we hear a complaint and it doesn't have that necessarily built in already, but we take the extra moment to think about what implications, our impact could have on us.
I'll give you a concrete example.
There you go.
The relocation survey or the relocation plan talks about income of people that live there. It does not actually answer these questions, so that's something to think about. These questions are not, we do not get the answers to these questions as part of that survey. We don't require it. So, that's something, I'm just saying that the answers to these questions are not part of the tenant survey.
No, I understand, but then again, that's kind of, like I said, that goes back to asking, are you in any of these classes and do you believe that you were discriminated against? And I think that can be a slippery slope.
Well, I guess the question that we need to ask is the answers that they're giving us in the tenant survey, is it telling us everything we need to know about this population, or are there some things we might need, some other things we might need to find out?
Well, I think just to break into Kira's point, I think that, for instance, I know that sort of automatically, whenever we talk about the relocation plans, we ask about the primary language of the residents so that the relocation plans are communicated to them effectively. I can't recall whether that's built into our relocation guidelines or if it's something that we just do, right? And these are sort of things that we would consider just doing or talking about. And I take your point about not first of all, overstepping into areas where maybe there is no issue, but again, I'm not viewing this as radically rewriting everything about how the TLC acts. It's just more of a reminder that it's
The guidelines for the commission.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair.
And if someone wants, if we want to take on some efforts to look more closely at our relocation guidelines, for instance, that would be well within our charter, and we could make sure that we're considering these protected classes as we're going through as part of the review process. I don't know whether it needs that. I'm not suggesting that we necessarily do it, but that would be one application.
Although you got to be careful about words or phrases like protected classes, because that has a definition, in federal and state law, and it's much more narrow than some of these categories. So if the commission wants to think about it in terms of these bullet points that are presented here as a guiding principle for us and how we do what we do, that's fine. But I think you got to be careful about words like protected classes and things like that, because then that brings a whole other level of scrutiny under, federal discrimination laws, housing laws, things like that, that's well beyond the purview of the TLC.
Yeah, I was just referring in shorthand to
Okay.
the bullet point list, but yeah, I take your point. Okay, well, so again, I think, this is the sort of thing, we pass it, it is like a part of our charter essentially, and we keep it at the forefront of our minds as we go through review processes. It's something that we are likely already doing, and that we can always do better at. I understand the concerns, but I would still like to put it forward for a vote. So
To adopt, in other words?
to adopt the.
I'll
the
make a
equity
motion to
framework.
adopt.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Can I get a second? All right, any opposed?
That was Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. Aaron seconded, yes. Any opposed to adopting the equity framework? All right.
I think I have to ask online too, right?
Yeah, who is with us online? I missed it. So I was
Sarah
late.
Chris dropped off.
She jumped off.
Okay, I'm just gonna, so it's just Sarah in terms of commissioners online?
Yep, I
Yes.
support this.
Okay, great. And I don't hear any no's, so the rest are in favor, I presume?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, is anyone abstaining? Just triple checking.
No.
Great. Okay, then the equity framework is adopted by the Tenant Landlord Commission. Thank you all. That will bring us to our final matter on the agenda, which is the subcommittee updates. And let's start with the alternative dispute resolution.
Hi, no one else from my committee is here.
Chris had a work emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we met with Jennifer Daniels and Hector last month at the end of June to kind of debrief on what we've been learning and what the direction that we are going to recommend heading in to make sure it's still aligned with their original goals. We are drafting a letter of recommendations that we were planning to have for you all in September. But to give a highlight of that, we think there's a lot of things that we can be doing, that county staff, that TLC can be doing to strengthen, and we've heard it here tonight, tenant landlord relations in general and how the county assists in problem solving, that we should focus on first before adding another resource that tenants can call it, or another thing for us to put resources in, when we should be focusing on what we already have in place and making sure that they're well used. So what we'll be doing is having a list of recommendations on where we think that those things can be improved on. Once we do have that, and part of that is collecting more data on like how many, what is unresolved when someone calls into, when someone talks to Hector or Rolda. And then from there, once we have that, I get better insights on where does it really make sense to introduce an alternate dispute resolution. So.
That sounds good to me. I would love for you guys to think about in your recommendations something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last year, which is making our internal complaint process more rigorous. Sounds like you're already talking about it.
Public comment.
Fantastic.
So
yeah, that would be my number one.
Following up,
Exactly. That would be my number one priority. It's something that I haven't done a perfect job of in facilitating, to make sure that commissioners are kept abreast of things that happen outside of the TLC meetings themselves. So yeah, if you guys have time to think more deeply about it and get a regimented internal process, that would be fantastic.
Definitely. Something that we have more control over that than other things. So something we can implement.
Yeah. Okay, anything else there then? Fantastic. We'll move to the outreach subcommittee. Commissioner Whitaker. Any other updates besides the one we've talked about already today?
No, I mean, for everybody that wasn't there or wasn't aware, we met on Monday, a couple days ago. Kieran, I'm sorry we missed you.
My apologies. Yeah. I missed all my messages due to a power failure, so.
So Kieran wasn't there, but fortunately, David was able to be there, and so we were able to have a quorum in person, and Matt attended virtually. And I think there are a number of issues to talk about. I know we talked about a few of them in terms of how we might want to approach potentially board member Ferranti about some issues. So I don't know if you want to get into that now, or, I mean, my hope was that maybe it could be discussed now so that it doesn't wait 2 months.
I agree,
until,
yeah. I think we should have a conversation about it. You drafted a letter, and I think we can just sort of talk through the initial draft. I've had a chance to look at it, and obviously it's based on our conversations, but happy to let you take the lead since this is your subcommittee.
Okay, so I think I mean, I'll just say personally, I'm I guess a little disappointed that we didn't get involved in some of the effort that Anne, the NetCS department, had been working on for quite some time, and we kind of were late to the party, so to speak. And I find it interesting because it's their effort was, kind of conducted in parallel to ours, and so I think that's where maybe we were frustrated.
Yeah.
Had we known, we might have been able to provide more meaningful participation in that effort. I'm not saying anything they're doing is inadequate or wrong, but it might have been helpful to staff. I mean, hopefully they view our participation that way, and I think they do. But our effort now, I think we can kind of shift a little bit in terms of the outreach subcommittee, and I think there are 2 gaps really that I see. One is that the housing division's effort is really focused on the CAF units, which I guess Anne said there were roughly 11,000 units or whatever, what was her number. But obviously there's a much broader renter population in Arlington that, people who might be living in anything from luxury class A all the way down to, what everybody calls market rate affordable units like I happen to own. And so I think there are probably a lot more people than just those in the CAF units that could benefit from a better awareness of county resources available to renters in Arlington. And because Arlington does have a pretty robust list of resources available, at least online, from what we've been able to see. I think they're just hard to get to. And I think that they are that bridging that gap between all of the rental population in Arlington, or as much as we can reach, and some of the resources that are available, is a goal that we can take on and probably work with housing staff or housing division staff or whomever is the right party to do that. Our notion was, whether we could require landlords to distribute information, and if we couldn't, because the legal authority didn't exist, which I think we're still unclear on. If the legal authority didn't exist, then perhaps there's a way to strongly suggest that this that there's a link created between provided by landlords, a link between tenants and the resources that are available. So I think number one, filling that gap is one thing, and then reaching out to the broader renter community in Arlington is the other big topic item. And so we talked about this at the subcommittee meeting, but I drafted a letter that I shared with David just yesterday. So it's hot off the press as a draft that kind of talks to, or it's addressed to Matthew Ferranti, who's our TLC liaison, recommending that that the board consider implementing something along those lines if they felt they could do so, and making the case that that this gap between renters and the available resources exists, and that we should be able to help fill it. So I don't really want to read the letter, but.
No, I don't think we need to read it into the record or anything, and it is just a draft. But I think that the other aspect of our conversation on Monday was, I think all commissioners received the response from the county attorneys. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the way I read that as an attorney was, you can do this, but we're not sure if there's necessarily precedent for it. I don't know how deeply they looked at the issue. It's hard to get a good read. They didn't say no, though. And to me, that is an opening that I think the TLC should take advantage of. Again, our role is as an advisory body to the county board. We don't make the final call on whether any resources are allocated towards this or whether they actually want to require it.
From years of experience, so the county board makes the final call. The county attorney's opinion is something that they take into consideration. And oftentimes the county attorney's opinion is something which is very careful because they don't want the county board to get into some legal, but ultimately the county board can take that opinion or not.
I agree, and
That's a
as
fact.
someone who regularly advises clients on potentially risky legal maneuvers, yeah, you have to give sort of like a risk calculation. I'm not sure we really got that in our request.
I would say that, that from what and I'm not an attorney, but I've spent a lot of time around them. It seemed like something that was maybe not thoroughly researched by, some of the more senior folks, but I suspect that if we were to make this proposal to the board and the board started asking the county attorney, they might give it the thorough analysis that it deserves. And you might find that they don't have the legal authority to do it under the Dillon rule or some other thing, but ultimately, again, the letter that I drafted, and maybe we can share with the rest of the commission through the proper channels. If for some reason there's a legal impediment to the county board requiring it, then perhaps there's another way to just, to again, get the word out and disseminate it on a more best efforts basis.
Yeah.
But I think it's got to come from the board because they're the ultimate policymaking body for the county.
The what has to come from the board?
Some push to either see if this can be required of landlords or whether it can be implemented as some kind of strongly suggested optional program.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that every landlord in the county send this out, or just?
Well, so for example, you guys have to provide, I know I keep bringing this up, but it's just the best example. You have to provide recycling information with your lease, and you got to provide it annually thereafter to every tenant in your portfolio. I guarantee you don't print out, I don't know how many tenants in your portfolio, probably thousands, but I don't print out thousands of flyers. I email them a PDF, and that suffices. And it's posted in my laundry rooms, right? So I comply with the retract requirements and stuff like that, even though I'm not inspected. But so tacking on a PDF to the list of all the other lease documents, I don't see as a heavy ask for any landlord. And I also see it as frankly potentially serving landlords because tenants, a better informed tenant is helpful to the landlord too, because they're going to understand what their rights and responsibilities are. In fact, I think also within the last couple of years, the Virginia State General Assembly required that list of rights and responsibilities be disseminated.
Yeah, the tenant rights.
Yeah.
I think that's like kind of the play that you would take is it has to fall under some kind of jurisdiction of like you have to do this based upon that's a tenant's rights based upon the Virginia House did that, not. Like,
Well, but again, I think that's the county attorney has to advise the board on that.
Yeah.
But
I don't need to come from like us, but like definitely recommend that like it should be.
well, for example, recycling came from a statewide initiative that the county board implemented, right?
Because it's the Department of
Environmental
Environment.
Services. Yeah, environmental services.
Statewide, yeah.
Right.
That's a statewide mandate.
Yeah, but it comes from the county.
But it is required.
Well, again, I don't think any of us are.
Well, let's pause for a second. And I think this is an interesting point, right? Again, we got something from the county attorney, right, that didn't say no. There are potential other routes that we can take here, other recommendations we can make in a fulsome letter to the county board. One can be, we want you to try and require this, but if you can't or won't do that, then we want you to suggest it, provide the resource to landlords. You mentioned, for instance, the National Landing bid, the landlord client list. There's no reason we can't tap into some of the resources that the TLC itself has to push things out, and then the county board can do it at an even larger level. Again, not necessarily as a requirement, although that is probably our ideal scenario, right? But through its power. And then the last thing I want to suggest here in this conversation is that we also have the ability to pass along legislative priorities to the county board to be done at the state level. And maybe that's something that we push for this year. That makes a lot of sense to me. And that would be an enormous win. That would affect many more people than just Arlington County. That we could have a little bit to do with, right? And so I don't know whether that's incredibly likely to happen or not, But I think this is the sort of thing that TLC is designed to try to do.
I agree with that. The other piece that maybe we're all forgetting is that every property in the tax assessment database is classed as a multifamily asset. So it wouldn't be all that hard to run a database search and find the addresses of these multifamily assets in the county, and I'm sure there are thousands of them, right, above a certain size, and use that as a resource. So it could be bids, it could be tax records, it could be a lot of different ways to get this information out, and most of it can be done cheaply. I'm not suggesting that we go out and print 50,000 flyers, like that's ludicrous, right? But again, the case that I made in this letter when I wrote the initial draft was hitting send on an email with a PDF attached is essentially free.
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead, Emily.
Is there a reason why we would not just start with recommendations and sending it out to what we do know, getting it out there, and then continuing forward with, now that some landlords have done this and adopted it, we recommend that the county require it, and that gives us time, because it's going to take a long time for the county to say, yeah, we'll do this. Yeah, we'll require it. Yeah, but we're talking a year from now, probably.
Well, I think if we had a product, so what happened was our process in the subcommittee kind of ground to a halt a couple months ago when we learned that there was a duplicate effort going on, what we viewed as a duplicate effort with what the housing division was doing. And so we had started lining out the kinds of information that we wanted to have on this, one-pager sort of information guide, resource guide, if you will. And then when we learned of this effort of additional resources being generated by the housing division and human services and police and fire and stuff like that, we're like, well, wait a second, we don't even have a handle on all the resources. So we don't even know what goes in this thing. So I think we could once that's ready, but we will have to kind of reorient ourselves in the effort to create this resource guide, I guess is the best way to describe this document that we're thinking of. So I think we're going to have to spend time doing that. And that's not done yet. And really it needs to be restarted, if you will.
There's no way we'll go to the county board for an approval to push forward with this without saying this is what it is.
I mean, maybe. So yeah, I want to chart a path forward here, right? That has some more concrete stuff in it. I think there's still some more work that we can do at the outreach community level, because there are some of these contingent possibilities, right? We're going to be receiving, hopefully within a couple of days, if not tonight or tomorrow, the final product of what was distributed to the CAF units, and I think that will be an excellent launching pad for outreach subcommittee to finalize its own product, whether it is exactly the same or whether it's something that's slightly different. I don't know, or frankly care.
It's going to be completely different. And the reason it's going to be different is because we're not talking about duplicating the resources that exist. And in fact, during one of our subcommittee meetings, Hector very helpfully showed us where some of these resources that we were talking about exist online, but they took different clicks and different searches and blah, 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 blah to get to, right? And so they're hard. It's not that they don't. It's not that the resources don't exist. They do. They're just sort of hard to find, and they're in different places, and kind of hard to get to. And so the idea here that this has evolved into is to provide a simple one-page guide, probably in as many languages as we can online, right? And connecting the tenants and saying, look, if you have this problem, go to here. Go to this web address, call this number at this department. And it can include not just county departments. It can be what's it, legal aid, legal
services,
LSNG or Bugata or community groups and things like that are already mentioned in a lot of the county resources. So this is really just bridging that bridging that gap between tenants and the resources that already exist. And if to the extent that the resources are getting better and more robust that the county is producing, then great.
Yeah. I think to Emily's point, we can and should ultimately make a recommendation to the county board. Whether we do that through this sort of early letter straight to Matt Differenti, and he provides it to the board, and then we continue to explore, or we wait and hold our guns until we've got everything ready, I think is for discussion tonight, right? And then the the other aspects here can be debated more deeply in the outreach subcommittee. But I think I just want to settle on exactly what the next steps are.
Looks like Rolda has her hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Mistaken.
Go ahead, Rolla.
I'm sorry. Yes, I have my hand up because this conversation has been going on for a really long time, for the last however many months. And it's still not clear in my mind, what is it, the product that is coming out of the Tenant Landlord Commission. And let me back up a little. When the subcommittee was first started, the focus was for the subcommittee to produce a document specific to the Tenant Landlord Commission. It was one to raise the visibility of the Tenant Landlord Commission. It was not a resource document. And I think this is where the duplication has occurred, because this subcommittee is now trying to produce an outreach resource document for renters. That was never the original intent of the subcommittee. The subcommittee was going to work narrowly on trying to increase the visibility of the Tenant Landlord Commission, seeing where that can be perhaps inserted in various documents that are, and other things that are already going out, being distributed by various nonprofits and our partners, housing partners and others. So I think somewhere along the line we strayed, and here we are now. There's a bit of mission creep, if you will. It's now being identified as duplication between the outreach and housing division.
So, Rolla, I think that's a great point. I think that very early on in the subcommittee meetings, and Matt and Kieran, you guys tell me what you think, but very early on, maybe even in the first subcommittee meeting, we talked about, we could certainly make people more aware of the TLC as a resource, but we quickly realized that we're just volunteers, and we can't TLC has a limited scope and a limited reach. And if everybody came to us with a complaint for landlord-tenant disputes, we wouldn't be able to do anything else, right? And so I think you're right in that the scope of the assignment by the subcommittee expanded, but very deliberately. It wasn't just by accident. So I think it was, I guess we could make the TLC more known, but why couldn't we make all the resources available to tenants in Arlington more known, including the TLC? Like, we're not going to leave ourselves off the list.
So to be honest, what Rolla's talking about is we decided to merge subcommittees. Rolla's talking about is what the previous, before you guys joined, what Chris Winbush, Bisma, and myself, what we came up with, which is basically Chris Winbush. We designed a one-page flyer that just talked about the Tenant Landlord Commission. So that's essentially what we started with. And we merged, and we took that one-page thing, and we decided we wanted to do something bigger and more. And so that's essentially what Rolla's talking about.
Yeah,
So
I
it started with that idea that we were just going to have something that was just going to
promote the TLC.
how do you find out, where do you go for a tenant landlord? The
right
phone number, the meeting date.
But I think we agreed. I mean, can you imagine if we somehow disseminated all that information about TLC and we had 500 people show up at every meeting? I mean, I'm exaggerating, but I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of the resources for a lot of the questions we get are already, that information is available to renters in Arlington. Arlington County does a tremendous job, the housing division and other divisions, of providing these resources. How can we connect people? Because I think we all see it all the time. People show up to the commission, maybe they weren't aware of certain resources that we can then point them to, whether it's their lease or legal aid or Bugata or the VRLTA or whatever, that maybe would have prevented them from coming to the TLC in the first place. It would have answered their question a lot more simply.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to take us back to to what we're going to do here today. We've had a lot of these conversations already in the outreach subcommittee meetings, and I think we are fairly set on what we want to do and have been for at least several months. So the thing that I want to address today is, how are we going to communicate this with the board, and when are we going to do it, and what are we going to tell them in that communication, right? And in my mind, I think the thing that I would suggest that we do is we tell Matt, this is what we're doing. We want you to help us get a better opinion from the county attorney to the extent it exists, right? Maybe they can't do anything more than what they've done. Fine. But we would like to have a better idea of whether we push forward with the requirement for all landlords to distribute this sort of thing or not. Or do we hold back and sort of make sure that we have every single one of our ducks in a row? We've got the document done. We've done a detailed analysis of our own that integrates whatever the county attorney has provided to us. But just keeping in mind that effort will take us a significant amount of time. We're not meeting in August. The TLC is not meeting in August. Whether a subcommittee meeting happens or not, I don't know. So my suggestion is that we move forward with a letter to Matt. This doesn't have to come specifically from the TLC, so we can make it from the TLC, and you guys can empower me to revise Ryan's draft and make sure that it's pointed and hits all the things that we're talking about here today. But that's my suggestion: is we move forward. We want a more detailed opinion, and in the meantime, the outreach committee works to finish its actual documents and considers alternatives aside from just the requirement for all landlords. And again, I think that Emily's point should be in there in those discussions as well, which is what can we do now or as soon as possible after the thing is drafted on our own without the county board? Because I think we have plenty of power to distribute these things within our networks, reach out to National Landing Bid and other landlords on our own without going through the county itself.
So can I respond to a couple things? First, I think the first thing, I agree with you that we should approach Matt sooner than later, because not just to try to spur a more definitive county attorney opinion on this, but also because Matt, I think, will give you, especially if it's you, temperature, right? He's going to tell you whether or not there's political will to introduce something like this.
Agreed.
And if he says, county attorney might say it's okay, but the county board isn't really interested in doing anything like this, then we might retool our effort along the lines of what you are suggesting, which is that it become a more informal thing that the TLC undertakes directly as opposed to going to the county board. What I wouldn't want to do, because I think it'll get tiresome to landlords, is I wouldn't want to try to get it out to some people and not others, because then assuming that we do go down the path where it becomes a requirement or a strong suggestion from the county board, it's going to be confusing, right? It's going to be like, well, wait a minute, isn't this something we already got? And the other thing I would say is, the one we can draft text, right? But we will need a few county resources to make it look good. We can't show Matt what it's going to look like without having somebody do a graphic design to make this kind of look closer to the final product, right? We can suggest and describe what the document would be in a letter to Matt or in a discussion with him, and let him decide whether or not he thinks that's worth his time and the board's time to consider. I think that would be a good first step. And this letter probably goes beyond that, significantly beyond that. And so maybe this is a letter that goes out later when we're ready to actually get the whole board.
Okay.
And so maybe this can be shelved, and a shorter letter that asks for a meeting and says, we're considering this effort. We'd like to speak with you regarding the legal issues around it and the political will to do it, and meet with him as our liaison. Seems
okay.
like
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with this interim step, and then outreach continues working on its own to get the initial final product ready for a final push to the board. Does that sound like a reasonable?
At least the text of it, and then again, I think we'll probably have to ask Matt. He's going to have to say, hey, look, you get $5,000 or get some time from whoever designs these things on behalf of the county, because the materials that we saw at that subcommittee meeting looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And if whoever did that for them could do something like that for us, and just take the copy, if you will, and translate it into something looks more final, to your point, Emily, I think that would be something that we would want him to support.
Yeah, okay. Brian, I disagree with one thing you said, because I think that it's not a bad idea to get people to voluntarily send it out, but I wouldn't do that until you have a final professional version.
Of course not. Yeah.
Yeah, because even if you said, hey, like voluntarily send this out and then like you came a year later and said, now it's mandatory, I wouldn't care. Like I'm already doing it, but I wouldn't want you to come and like have 4 iterations.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
it would have to be finalized in
Yeah.
whatever form
Yeah, exactly.
before it
And
goes out.
maybe in that, like, we've talked about how we've been focused on a lot of outreach to tenants and not as much outreach to landlords, and using this as an opportunity to grow that. And maybe it's not, hey, include this and everything, but like, hey, here's information about the tenant landlord, like what resources we provide, what resources there are. Like maybe it's something you just like have in your lobby or like something like that. Like there's steps before you like make it there.
I think it would be interesting, and this is like a longer term project, and also we're running out of time, but it would be interesting to try and have like a landlord summit. You know, we have tenant summits routinely, just so that the TLC can get a better landlord perspective, a broader base of landlord perspective than, you know, just the commissioners we have on.
The
which
only,
are
I can help with that.
the only altruistic landlords are the ones on the commission already. So.
There are no
Really?
others.
He's not wrong.
Oh,
He's
man.
not wrong.
Okay, good. I think that's what we'll do. I don't know that we even need a vote for that, because it'll be a relatively informal thing. I've already got a set meeting date with Matt coming up. I think it's next week. So I'll update everyone in an email at some point after the meeting to let you know what I got from Matt about those questions, whether we'll get something from the county attorney that's different or more detailed, whether it'll be more politically feasible. The last thing I'm going to comment on is unrelated to this issue. It's we've got a few vacancies, and also, unfortunately, Commissioner Royer is leaving Arlington and will be resigning.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Herndon.
Herndon?
What?
No, I thought you were,
Like I thought it'd
I
be
thought it was
another,
like, you know, Oregon.
Yeah, no, it's like, going to California. No, going to
Yeah.
Going 20 minutes down the road.
So you keep your job, huh?
Yeah. But unfortunately, that leaves us with another empty seat. There is a more touchy issue that I'm not going to get into today about another commissioner that I'm sure others are probably aware of, that I'm also going to be speaking with Matt DiFerenti about. But we have 2 brand new applications for the TLC that I'm going to be speaking with them early next week, providing a recommendation to Matt about. So there's a
I've
lot
lost
of
track of the vacancies or which
Yeah.
spots.
Public interest or?
Public interest.
Yeah, so we're losing a public interest. We already had a pre-existing landlord vacancy, and we are likely to have another tenant vacancy. So that's the shape of things right now. Again, I'm interviewing 2. I think one is for public interest and one is for tenant.
I asked around landlords and everybody told me no.
Yeah.
is it just you and Chris that are public interest?
Uh,
Is that like-
Yeah, I would be I'm the only other one.
So
it's
we
you
already
and
had a
Chris.
vacancy, so we'll have 2 vacancies for public interest.
No, there's only 3 public interest representatives.
Yeah,
Okay.
There are 4 for landlord and 4 for tenant and 3 for public interest.
Okay.
So we changed the rules a while back, and it's gonna be.
It was a lot easier when it was 3, 3, and 3.
Yeah, I thought it moved to 4, 4, and 4.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other things from staff that we haven't gone through yet?
I just want to draw your attention to NOFA, which is the announcement for funding opportunity. What is? Anyhow, so that is our large grant from the federal government, Housing and Urban Development, our HUD grant, and we issue it annually, and it is up available. So we are asking you to let various organizations know about it. It's on our website, and so we just launched it, and it's due September 8th, I believe. So there's a couple of months, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to get that done. So that is the grant and the funding that we use to fund many organizations, many of the resident service projects, and also a lot of, whether it's homeless related projects or after school programs, some employment programs. So it is, get about $1.2 million or more annually, and so that application is available to everyone. So that's my announcement for the evening.
Will you provide that information via email and maybe just group it up with the CAF resource guide for whenever you get that to pass all around to commissioners, so we get one email.
Cool. Can
Good.
do that, sure.
Great. Okay, thank you, Rhoda. Always appreciate your help, and thanks, Hector. Any other things from commissioners? Excellent. Hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Ryan. And thank you, Aaron. You got a second? All right, that concludes we're in July, the July Tenant Landlord Commission meeting. Thank you.
There is no meeting in August.
Right.
Just a reminder.
I'll be here just to get you.